Hi, I'm Granny, and we're going down the rabbit hole of the brain and memory. My first memory is a place where we lived when I was about 2 years old and maybe even a little younger. Recently, my older sister wasn't convinced because I was so young when we lived in that home. I was able to describe the house in detail, including the staircase leading up to a mezzanine, the railing on the mezzanine, the light above it, and how it fed into the different bedrooms, where the kitchen was, where the living room was, and even an alley in the back of the house. And she confirmed I was accurate in all the details. Have you ever wondered how good your memory is? In the last episode, I mentioned a Dr. Eric Kandel, Kandel, an Austrian-born American medical doctor who won the Nobel Prize for Physiology in 2000 on his research of the physiological basis of memory storage in neurons. He shared the prize with Arvid Carlsson and Paul Greengard. Dr. Kandel was born in Austria, but his family decided to leave when Germany annexed or invaded Austria in March of 1938. His mother was from an Ashkenazi family. His father was also Jewish. This is when the attacks on Jews really escalated. Dr. Kandel was 9 and his brother was 14 when they were sent to live with an uncle in Brooklyn, New York. In May of 1939, his parents followed later. Have you ever heard of Kristallnacht? November 9th, 1939, the SA, or German stormtroopers, think of Star Wars stormtroopers, very similar, and Hitler youth groups shattered the windows of about 7,500 Jewish-owned businesses, which is where the name Kristallnacht, Crystal Night, came from. They broke in and looted Jewish businesses and homes. All through Germany, attacks on Jewish individuals and families continued in many European countries throughout the war. The 2009 movie, The Monuments Men, was about important items stolen during World War II. The film is based on a 2007 nonfiction book titled The Monuments Men, Allied Hero, Nazi Thieves, and the Greatest Treasure Hunt in History, written by Robert Edsel and Brett Witter. An Allied group created in 1943 called Monuments, Fine Arts and Archives Program was given the task of finding and saving pieces of art and other culturally important items. If you were to even Google, or some of your streaming devices has programs based on this event and the search of trying to find some of these items stolen. Anyway, we know most of the items stolen from Jewish people throughout World War II were never returned to the rightful owners. Dr. Campbell went from this environment, being a refugee from Austria, to becoming a Nobel Prize winner. His career began when he was trying to understand his experience during World War II, wondering why we humans mistreat each other so. Dr. Kandel specialized in psychiatry, was a neuroscientist, and a professor of biochemistry and biophysics at the College of Physicians and Surgeons at Columbia University. He began his career trying to understand humans, which then led to identifying the physiological changes that occur in the brain during formation and storage of memories. In previous episodes, I discussed how scientists have learned that if, after studying or struggling with an issue, you took at least a 20-minute nap or rest, it increased your ability to retrieve this information from long-term memory. I use this technique to pass my stats class. It also reminds me of the thought experiments that Albert Einstein and Max Planck used. And some people believe that it is taking that rest that transfers the information from short-term memory to long-term memory. Our brain is made up of many nerve cells which communicate by sending electrical and chemical signals to each other. These signals control our bodies and behavior. Remember when we went down the rabbit hole of circadian rhythm and how when light entered the eyes, it signaled the body to turn on hormones, turn off hormones. Such a fascinating thing. Just like the sun creates energy through chemical reactions, our brain also changes what we see, hear, taste, think into chemical reactions. I am sharing in these few minutes what Dr. Kandel and his colleagues have been studying for 40 plus years. And he is currently 94 years old and serving on the Scientific Council of the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, which is really an inspiring thought that we can not just retire and go into limbo. Anyway, there are many interviews and articles and even a TED Talk with Dr. Kandel, and I encourage you to learn more about him. Dr. Kandel studied how memories are stored by nerve cells. His breakthrough began in 1970 while he was at New York's University studying a marine snail. A snail. Dr. Kandel decided to study the Aplysia californica, a giant sea snail, in his experiments to understand memories and how they are formed. He chose this snail because it has the largest nerve cells in the animal kingdom. The snail's brain cells can be seen with the naked eye, making research easier. It also has a very simple nervous system with only 20,000 brain cells compared to a human's brain's estimated 100 billion nerve cells. He found that as the snail learned, he was able to note the chemical signal changes in the structure of the connections between the cells, known as synapses, where the signals are sent and received. Dr. Kandel became curious and went on to learn that short-term and long-term memories are formed by different signals by studying a snail. He and his team studied these creatures, documenting what they were seeing, that then resulted in the understanding the process of learning. We have all learned from those with brain injuries how short-term and long-term memories can be damaged. Short-term memory is the capacity to recall a small amount of information from a recent event. Long-term memory is the ability to recall memories from a long time ago. Learning in the snail altered the strength of the pre-existing synaptic connections, making them stronger and bigger in the brain. They found that the persistence of the synaptic change was the mechanism of how memory was stored. And there's all kinds of information on the experiments that they performed that gave them this result. Repeated learning alters the strength of these connections. We've all heard the idea of what you do, and if you do something repeatedly for a long time, you get better at it. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book, Outliers, The Story of Success, published in 2008, popularized the idea based on research that suggests Practice is the essence of genius. Gladwell claimed that anyone could achieve a professional level of proficiency with enough practice, regardless of natural aptitude, which is really fascinating. Throughout his book, Gladwell repeatedly refers to the 10,000 hour rule, asserting that the key to achieving true expertise in a skill is simply a matter of practicing. Synaptic connections are the spaces in the brain where neurons communicate with each other. Synapses are essential for the transmission of nervous impulses between neurons, allowing for rapid and direct communication. Dr. Kandel learned, and this I will repeat because it's rather complicated, learned that protein synthesis is the process necessary for changing information from short-term memory to long-term memory. Protein synthesis is the biological process where amino acids are assembled by peptide bonding into specific sequences in accord with genetic blueprints encoded by DNA. I'm going to repeat that because it is complicated, but it's essential to understand because right now, while you're learning, this is what's going to be taking place if you choose to continue thinking about it. Protein synthesis is the biological process where amino acids are assembled by peptide bonding into specific sequences in accord with genetic blueprints encoded by DNA. From a snail they learned this. They went on to describe this process translocates from the cytoplasm to the nucleus. And this is what prompts information to move from short-term memory to long-term memory. The older I get, the more important, valuable, and cherished memories are to me, especially memories of lost loved ones. And one reason I do these videos, to share with those I love what is important and interesting to me. Thank you for sharing your time with me, and join me next time when Granny goes down the rabbit hole. Thank you. Please like and share.